Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
It's time-consuming and complicated, but if you need security clearance to do your job for the government or for a government contractor, you've got no choice but to go through what it takes to get cleared. One question that comes up quite a bit, should I go to my clearance hearing? Here with some advice, attorney Ryan Nerney of Tully Rinke. Mr. Nerney, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
I guess the question, should you attend your hearing? Isn't it mandatory that you have to? Tell us more about the process, maybe, and where the hearing fits into security clearance.
Sure. I mean, it depends on the agency that you're trying to get a clearance with, but no, it's not mandatory at all. I guess the only way it could potentially be mandatory is, let's say, if you're a DoD contractor and there's an attorney on the other side, you request that you want to have a decision on the written record, but the government counsel decides, no, he wants to have a hearing. Then at that point, he can put in a request to the judge. And at that point, it would be mandatory for you to attend. If you don't attend, then, at that point, your clearance would be in severe jeopardy.
Right. So you have to attend if there's a chance that they could deny you or they need more questions. But otherwise, in routine cases, the hearing is just for them, not really for you, sounds like.
No. It's definitely for the individual trying to get the clearance, right? And in my practice, I see that the hearing is probably an individual's best opportunity to try to mitigate whatever the concerns the government has. That's a lot of times if you have, like, let's say a guideline E case, which is personal conduct, a lot of times it's good to appear in person so that the judges or the adjudicators can make that credibility determination about you.
Right, but do they ever approve someone without a hearing, without having them come
to a hearing?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. I get cases all the time where we submit responses to statement of reasons on the written record to be favorably adjudicated. Absolutely.
All right. So you said in general it's to your benefit to go to a hearing. What can you expect at a hearing?
Sure. It's important to understand these hearings are administrative, right? So it's not like what you see on let's say Law and Order or something like that, right? They're administrative. A lot of times, the judges don't wear, robes or anything like that. But it is, there usually is a government counsel there. So there is going to be some cross-examination. You do have the ability to have witnesses as well testify on your behalf. But it's important to understand, so the rules of evidence in these types of proceedings are relaxed. And essentially what that means is that anything that is really somewhat relevant will be admitted into evidence and be considered by the judge. Another kind of big, factor is at least on the DoD side, when you have these hearings with the Defense Office of Hearings and Appeals, you're not sworn an oath. You're admonished under Title 18, Section 1001 of the U.S. Code, which is essentially the same thing as lying under oath, but you don't have to raise your right hand and say, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God. In Department of Energy, you do, though.
That's just an energy policy of their own that they engineered.
Yeah, the Department of Energy is they beat to their own drum. So they do things a little bit differently. The appeals process are a little bit differently. The Department of Energy actually is one where you actually can submit a written response or a hearing. You actually don't get the opportunity to do both. I guess you could potentially, when you submit your request for hearing, you could provide a mini response, but it's not going to be the same type of adjudication as it would be, for like DOD or some of the other intelligence agencies.
And you mentioned that they might want to have you in because of something in, I think it was personal behavior or something that came up in the course of their investigation. What's a good example of the type of thing a person might have done that would cause them to have that question?
Yeah, the biggest thing is if you're alleged to have lied, or omitted some information or something like that, right? Because then the judge would have to make a credibility determination on, whatever that explanation is. Why did you do it? And if you kind of have a history or a track record of that, a lot of times it's good to actually appear in front of a judge as opposed to, like a written response where the judge can't make that credibility determination. So you appear in front of the judge and the judge is able to kind of say, hey, this guy either made a mistake or he's a chronic liar.
Which means that they are actually looking at the information and checking it out that you filled out on that, SF 186 form? I forget.
Yeah, the SF 86. Yeah.
86, right.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's, the whole process has been a little bit more streamlined now because it's with DCSA, Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency. And, they change their acronym almost on a monthly basis now. But yeah, I mean, it starts with that. Then you have the investigation where they go through the entire SF-86. And once it gets to an actual adjudicator with DCSA, then at that point, they take a look at it, decide if you're going to be issued a statement of reasons or not. And then, it's all based upon the information that you provide from that form that you just mentioned.
We're speaking with Ryan Nerney. He's a lawyer with the law firm Tully Rinke. And just backing up a bit, these hearings take place in what physical locations? I mean, do you have to necessarily go far to be able to attend your own hearing?
Back in the day, I used to have to travel all over the country doing these types of hearings. Now with, after the pandemic and things like that, everybody has kind of transitioned to more virtual. Department of Energy has usually been virtual because the judges don't travel. They're always in DC. But for like the DOD, I mean, they used to have to travel all over the place. Now they use, a government version of Microsoft Teams, where I would say the majority of these cases are probably virtual now, unless you're on one of the coasts. If you're on, like, let's say the East Coast in DC, you can go to DC or Virginia, Arlington, where the Doha headquarters is, or Doha also has a satellite office in Woodland Hills, California, which is in Los Angeles County, that you can also go in person. And then sometimes there's judges trickled around the country where, you can get, like a federal courthouse and go there. But for the most part, I would say the majority of the hearings now are probably virtual.
And of course, if they're trying to evaluate you and get a sense of whether you're telling the truth, that's a little harder in a virtual setting. They can't see, for example, if you pull out your steel spheres and start playing with them like Captain Queeg, it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, you're obviously on camera, right? But I mean, it's from basically the top up. So yeah, you can't really see what they're doing, per se. But the judges have been doing this for a while. They're pretty savvy, as far as understanding and kind of reading people. I mean, I'm old school. I prefer in person, but unfortunately, this is the way that the world is going, and this is the transition that they made. So we kind of have to make do. But as long as the judge can actually see an individual and see them, their face and kind of, their expressions and kind of how they handle certain questions and things like that, judges can make a pretty good credibility determination about those individuals.
And since they have initiated, at least for some of the people that are applying, the people that have clearance, this idea of continuous monitoring using data sources and so on, what's your sense of the process now as it stands? Is it actually faster and more efficient than it was, or all of this effort and changing of agencies that has been going on over the last few years, has it had any effect from the standpoint of someone who represents people trying to get clearance?
Yeah, you're talking about the continuous vetting action. Yeah, so I mean, I keep saying back in the day, but they previously used to have, for a top secret every 5 years, you did a re-up, and then every 10 years for a secret, you did a re-up. They kind of still follow that a little bit, but they realistically, the continuous vetting action and program, they can pull your clearance at any time. So I would say that it has been streamlined more. I think they're a little bit more efficient, at least as efficient as the government can be. And but it adds more work because it's continuous. So right. I mean, they don't have to wait every 5 or 10 years. They can pull you at any time. I've had situations where clients have submitted an SF-86 and then they're required to submit another one a year later, because of the continuous vetting action. So I mean, it adds more work, but I have seen it speed up a little bit over the past, I would say, few years.
Okay, so if you fill out the SF-86, send it in, how long is it taking right now?
Again, it depends on the agency. If you go to one of the intelligence agencies, it's going to take significantly longer than like DOD. The one that's kind of been more streamlined is DOD. Department of Energy, with all their quirks, they're probably the quickest, just because they're just more efficient, I guess. But I would say on average, once you submit an SF-86, up until if you don't get a statement of reasons or anything like that, I would say it'd be anywhere from 2 to 4 months. If you do get a statement of reasons, then that process kind of has its own legs, because if you respond to it in writing, but you're able to mitigate the allegations on the written response, you don't have to go to a hearing. That shortens it significantly. If you have to go to a hearing, then, obviously that prolongs it. So, I mean, to give you a general time frame, if there's no issues, probably 2 to 4 months. If there are issues, it could be upwards of a year.
Well, that's not horribly long, I guess, considering what it was a number of years back, where it took, I think, several years, right?
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind that's obviously, on average. I mean, I definitely have clients who have been waiting longer, and then I've had clients who have gotten clearances approved in 2 weeks. So, I mean, it just varies. I mean, the best thing to do, is to just be fully honest and truthful on the forms, because if you're not, and there's more information that comes out later on throughout the investigation, that's going to prolong it even further.
Attorney Ryan Nerney of the law firm Tully Rinke, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate the time.
And we'll post